Can we navigate in a world where truth is relative? Can you understand the question if the truth of language is relative? I mean, that in itself destroys the question. But let's get into it today as we watch your culture stray further every day. Howdy. Jonathan Fiala here for Further Every Day, sitting today for the first time in a long time in the chair of theology. And to my left now, I've got Mr. Charlie. How's it going?
It is good. It's good to be here.
Long time no see.
It has been 3 months, almost 3 months.
So happy to have you back in studio and back around.
Glad to get after it again.
It is fantastic.
Yes, sir. In the chair of philosophy, I see, dealing with the rigor the Christian must bring. To his left, we got the Steve. How's it going,
Right on,
sir?
man. I'm here doing the culture thing and doing the what's not right.
Yeah,
And
well,
politically,
not culturally or politically
correct.
We were talking about uncultured swine earlier. Yeah, that's about
I guess I
you
could
guys
probably
missed
fall in that category somewhere.
That was a good conversation.
Toss me in there.
Yeah, Mr. Pomeroy hasn't seen Fiddler on the Roof, so I called him an uncultured swine in a loving way because I love him.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
Jesus.
Okay. So let's get into it today. So we live in a world that has declared itself to be post-truth, in a society that is postmodern. It is beyond, after postmodernism came, quote unquote, like this post-truth, and so I find that to be really fascinating because the first question I have to ask is that we're in a post-truth era. The first question I have to ask is that true?
And I'll tell you what, for people that might not understand what we mean when we say post-truth, there's two things that I want to bring out here, and I think it will drive it home. And before I get into these definitions, I want to encourage everybody to think about something. When I hate to say the term ancestors, let me go back a few generations. When your great grandma, great grandpa, dealt with things, did they believe in absolute truth? Yes, this is the way. Or were they fuzzy about it? They weren't fuzzy. They weren't at all. Listen to these definitions. Post-truth. Relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. Okay, now I'm going to call that a worldly look at the definition there. Okay, let me go to a different one now. Let me go to, this is more of a spiritual look, if you will. Postmodern, and I'm going to relate this to postmodern Christianity. Same concept, okay? Postmodern Christianity is just as difficult to lock down in a concise definition as postmodernism itself. What started in the 50s in architecture as a reaction to modernistic thought and style was soon adopted by the art and literary world in the 70s and 80s. The church didn't really feel this effect until the 90s. Now watch this. This reaction was a dissolution of cold, hard fact in favor of warm, fuzzy subjectivity. Think of anything considered postmodern, then stick Christianity into that context, and you have a glimpse of what postmodern Christianity is. And might I say, extend it even more, you have an understanding of post-truth.
I'm going to use an analogy on here that some of you are going to find to be filthy, and that's okay. The truth is, in the middle of the night, when you have to go to the bathroom, you have to get up and go to the bathroom to relieve yourself. Or you can sit there and feel warm and fuzzy and deny the fact that you have a biology. And you can do whatever you want. You are free to do that. You are free to sit in the filth of delusion.
But what's the reality?
But the reality is that even though you're warm and fuzzy, there will come a day where you are cold, or a moment where you are cold and you regret everything that you've done. And that's something that I think we've really seen fall out in our culture. And we have this idea that it's more important to be nice than it is to be correct. We see that in the culture, don't we, Mr. Steve?
Oh, man, yeah. Can you imagine?
I'll get you.
Going,
I was going to jump in on something there, but Steve,
to
go.
the store and, you're being rude to somebody, and instead of being correct on what you're talking about and you're rude, man, the whole line of people behind you, provided depending on their age range, you can run into, 20 people standing back there videoing it and then posting it on, TikTok or whatever, and saying how horrible of a person you are, and you need to be a whole lot nicer because of this person that was a cashier was being bad to you first off, and you're just responding to their, to what they're saying, and all they're catching on their video is what you're saying because they don't like what you are saying.
Truth from perspective takes precedence over truth from the reality, the overarching reality. And that's something that I think has really done the world a disservice. And I want to get to some of the stories. We're going to talk about the sub-explosion today. We're going to talk about a couple of the Hotez Rogan debate debacle, and we're talking about a couple of other things. People moving out of San Francisco, just consequences of not heeding truth. But I know that you wanted to say something.
Well, I think part of the issue that we have, and I would say this, that as Christians, I believe we bear the responsibility in shaping things. It's not to tell people that you're wrong. The Holy Spirit will do that. He's responsible for that work. We don't need to get involved in that. However, can we go ahead and share with people and explain, where the wrong is and just keep moving? I think we've gotten into a place where we think that we absolutely must win the argument at all costs. And if you win the argument and crush your quote unquote enemy, you haven't won anything.
Well, I like what Ben Shapiro said. Says after a certain point, you just keep owning the libs, and now you have a plantation full of them, and then you got to feed them, and you got to clothe them, and all of a sudden, it said maybe you want to win them over.
I think one of the most profound statements that Barbara Bush, and I'm talking the younger Barbara, George W.'s wife, I think one of the most profound statements that she made, especially early on in his presidency, and I'm not here to advocate for or against his presidency, I'm just telling you a statement that to me reflected very strongly as a Christian, and that was, we must win their hearts. What do you think Satan is doing? That's the whole business that he's engaged in right now. It's about winning hearts. Whose hearts? Children's hearts. Because he knows that's a shapeable, moldable place to go. And if he can win that heart, he wins the future.
Yes.
Yeah. Why do we teach our children about Jesus and God? Well, we could teach them about evil. Go ahead and tell me where we're getting with that. And that's exactly what our culture is doing right now. We are placing an emphasis on those things which are evil.
And those things which are frivolous as well.
Yes.
And that's something that I think is really, it's costed it. Diversity, equity, inclusion. We've always said that, yes, it could cost a life. But now, I think we actually are seeing that in the sub-story. If you could pull that up, Mr. Producer, on the Firefox capture. I think it's phenomenal as far as a case study of what we see in the failure of the Ocean Gate sub. Yeah, go ahead and pull that up, that headline. And so during this whole debacle, Director James Cameron says he, quote unquote, knew the submersible was destroyed 4 days before the debris was found. By the way, go ahead and pull this one up if you can. The Navy knew that the submersible was destroyed. Go ahead and pull that up. Yeah, thank you. The Navy also knew. James Cameron knew from a guess, a gut feeling. The Navy knew that things were imploded, and there's something sinister about that, but we'll get to that in a moment. But James Cameron, I want you to pull up that YouTube clip from James Cameron. I know I have you bouncing. It's going to be on the YouTube capture. And yes, start it from that, if you would, start it from that appropriate mark. Yes. Let's go ahead and roll it. I believe it's a 1.5-minute clip. Go ahead and roll that for us, Mr. Producer. Make sure you bring it up on the screen too.
Finite element analysis. We worked on our sphere for our deep vehicle that went to the Challenger Deep for over 3 years, just in the computer.
He's an expert
before we even made the thing, and then of course we pressure tested it over and over and over, and so on. So, this is a mature art, and many people in the community were very concerned about this sub, and a number of the top players in the deep submergence engineering community even wrote letters to the company saying that what they were doing was too experimental to carry passengers and that needed to be certified and so on. So I'm struck by the similarity of the Titanic disaster itself, where the captain was repeatedly warned about ice ahead of his ship, and yet he steamed at full speed into an ice field on a moonless night, and many people died as a result. And for a very similar tragedy where warnings went unheeded to take place at the same exact site, with all the diving that's going on all around the world, I think it's just astonishing. It's really quite surreal. And of course,
Go ahead and pause it there. So the problem that they brought up, and so for those who don't know, and Mr. Steve has actually done some deep dive on this and chime in. The thing that they had was they had a carbon fiber wrapped submersible. And so the way that carbon fiber works, for those who do not know, and you're thinking right, Mr. Producer, the way carbon fiber works, for those who don't know, is that you wrap this bundle of fibers, and then you lay up some epoxy resin over it, and then you lay another layer over it, and then another, and you do that over a titanium inner shell, an inner core. And that's how they built this. What everyone said, including the engineer who was fired and then sued for libel for speaking up and saying that this was lethal, this was scary. He said, that's not a good idea. But the problem with this guy is that he was 50 years old and white, and he wasn't inspiring the way the all women crowd that they took photos of, the queer, whatever the heck that TikToker was who was sent down and died, and again, it brings me no joy at all that these people died, especially the 17-year-old boy. Brings me no joy. There's zero rejoicing, just to be clear. But everyone saw it coming.
This is a product of not accepting truth. Truth is the most important asset that any one person can possess. And when you start to mess with it, you are going to put yourself in a path that is not going to be good at all. If you think about all the different tragedies over the years, and I'm talking, let's talk NASA. Okay. The Space Shuttle Challenger has to be one of the most heartbreaking things to have ever watched. Could that have been prevented?
There was someone who actually who whistle blew and attempted to get it fixed.
Why? Because they believed in a truth of science that said, that's not good and that's not going to work. When the Space Shuttle Endeavour came back and just literally dissipated over Texas in the southeast.
Endeavour or Columbia?
Columbia, sorry.
Yeah, I remember Columbia.
Yeah, could that have been prevented? Maybe not. But here's the key. When the first space shuttle went up and came back, what was the concern? Does anybody remember?
Yes, the shield,
the tiles. That's
underneath.
exactly right.
Yep.
Here's what I'm getting at. What they were talking about with that sub is exactly right. Was it tested? Was it adequately tested? I honestly believe that if we would do more testing, we would not be in the position of watching a sub disintegrate.
Well, and here's why it did, because it was carbon fiber. There's a philosophical aspect to this that's really interesting, because carbon fiber, like I said, is a at least two-part composite. It's actually a lot more.
You're
but
right.
At minimum, two-part composite. And it works as not as a pressure vessel, but as a pressurized vessel. You can have a carbon fiber spaceship as long as you have a shielding system that keeps it from disintegrating on reentry. As long as you have a coating on the outside, you could have a carbon fiber spaceship, because you fill it full of pressure and it'll expand. And the pressure is coming from the inside out. The carbon fiber, in the context of a compression, you have this thin titanium inner tube, and every time they went down, there were reports from reporters from a few different people where they said
times
they heard crackling.
And
That's scary.
It should have been a scrap the hull. We are redoing this.
Yep.
And the reason why is because it's the same reason why this guy hired people based on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because he's living in a different reality. And I don't want this to sound terrible, like I'm prejudiced against him because of his political beliefs. But what I'm saying is, you have a habit and a record of this guy actively dismissing reality, and it's in his religiously held beliefs, secular humanist beliefs. Sorry, that is a religious belief. It is in the way that he handled science. It's the way he ran his company.
Sounds like a narcissist.
Absolutely.
It shows edges of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, immensely. Yeah. And there's one other thing on some of the research that I'd done on this, was that in regards to the carbon fiber type of research vehicles that they've used, that were even unmanned, that they used. Now, when they did tests on these, they would send one down to a certain depth, use it, and typically after the very first test, they were done with them because of the problems that they would run into. If it was done a second time, you can guarantee it was going to be scrapped, because after that, they were finding cracks in them. And third time, you can count on problems happening, guaranteed that it was going to implode or something there were going to be major problems, guaranteed.
And that is something that's well-established science. But again, who wasn't there? The people with experience. And the reason they were kicked out was not because of some sort of philosophical misunderstanding about the scientific research method. There was nothing about, what you're not doing a good job. It wasn't that you didn't show up early or late or whatever. It was all the focus of, you're white.
Right.
And you're
Correct.
old. And I want someone who is 20 years old on this. As a 20-something-year-old, I have no problem with wanting to hire new people. What I do have a problem is you taking science and research and years of human experience, throwing it out the window and saying, because this kid is 20-something years old, he is somehow smarter, better, and wiser than a 50-something-year-old white man, although that'll never happen to me because I am white.
And has played immense numbers of computer games.
If I was
the whole idea.
If I was a queer transabled man, I could and transracial man, I
get jobs
I'd be good
like
to go.
Snap.
But as a straight white man,
if I could just add something in illustration to this, because I think this would home in really good for some of you out there that maybe don't hold to the Christian belief in the Christian worldview. You can remove and be as passionate as you want. You can remove people. You can remove the voices that claim they are speaking truth. You can passionately believe something that is quote unquote not true. Your passionate belief is not going to make you right. You can go ahead and look at an electric socket and you can say, that's not electric. That's not going to hurt me. It's not going to do anything to me. You can passionately believe that. And my friend, you will stick your finger in that socket and you will come to the reality that it indeed will hurt you. So for those of you that believe that silencing those that you don't agree with is the best way to go, I caution you, they are maybe the very voices that will keep you alive.
You have to welcome that.
Just because you believe it doesn't make it so.
Yeah,
especially when it's not so.
And just because the experts say that it works does not mean that it is so. Bringing us to our next story, the San Francisco story. I want to bring this up. And so remember we said that it does kill. It does change. We have an instance of diversity, equity, inclusion, or wokeism killing right here, where we have people who died because the scientists were too white, what have you. It'll be on the Firefox or YouTube capture is where you're going to want it. Yeah, if you could pull up that one starting at 0 and going to 34 seconds. If you can pull that up, sir.
Doubling trend of businesses leaving San Francisco, raising concerns over the city's future. Research shows empty storefronts and abandoned office space are on the rise. KTVU's Brooks Duros live tonight in downtown San Francisco with what can possibly be done here to turn things around. Brooks?
Well, Mike, they say it's going to take some heavy lifting and a multi-pronged approach. First, cleaning up the streets. Next, preventing crime and stopping retail theft. And third, figuring out what to do with all of those empty spaces and reimagining those abandoned storefronts.
Okay, pause it. Okay, so by the way, again, links in the description below, as always. But just all you have to do to fix San Francisco is, he got things kind of flipped up there. All you have to do San Francisco right is enforce the law, prevent more damage, lower the taxes,
get rid of the politicians,
and stop. And here's the thing: they're milking San Francisco dry, and it is I was just out there a month ago, and I walked through human excrement and needles. There was a mix-up with the rental car. Something happened. I had to carry 120 pounds of luggage / medical equipment for work, and I walked through hypodermic needles and human feces.
I hope you were wearing your boots, John.
I was wearing boots. I was wearing these. I was wearing these boots, man.
Good deal.
That's why they're brown. Anyway, that's for those on audio. Yeah,
hey,
you get it. No, in all seriousness, though, it was a really sad thing because I'm walking outside of Rivian's headquarters, and there's a mental defective pouring Gatorade on human poop, and this is outside of, if you don't know what Rivian is, it's one of the most successful electric car companies. It's in Palo Alto. Before I had to go into San Fran proper, about an hour away. And it was just amazing to me to see one of the richest companies in the world, and then you've got someone outside pooping on the street and then pouring Gatorade on it, and just because the person's not well, and so you've got this immense wealth, but then in the for lack of a better word, in the incredible just lack of respect for humanity. They allow these people to stand outside, and they say it's only merciful, it's only kind to let these people sit outside and do this. And it's like, that is not merciful. That is not kind. And if you didn't allow it, they wouldn't do it. A lot of them would not do it.
I would agree. And what you're talking about here, what can they do to fix it? Well, I would agree with what Steve said there a moment ago. Nothing, if you're going to maintain the current thought process that it's merciful. And you can radically change it if you want to change your attitude. This is an example where it doesn't work. This is an example of, you think you're doing the right thing. You think you've got your hands on truth. You don't.
Yeah.
The truth is, you're only exacerbating the problem to a deeper level. It's like trying to treat an infection, and the infection isn't going away. It's getting bigger.
And I think tinfoil hats out. I think that there is something to it, only if you want to. But just the hypothetical tinfoil hat on here. Why are they giving the homeless hypodermic needles and drugs?
Oh my gosh!
Why are we paying for that as a taxpayer? It's almost as if there's a desire to do that. You see how they were talking about repurposing the storefronts? It's the greatest wealth transfer that's ever happened.
That's a great point.
Where the middle class, this is chair of economics from Vermont, pretend I'm over there, right? But this is the biggest wealth transfer that has ever occurred. What you are seeing right now is the transfer of wealth. You're losing your children's future. You're losing all of the work that you put in. If you are a middle-class family, let's say, God forbid, that you're an entrepreneur. Oh my gosh, you're evil. Let's say that you are this person who has worked hard. You sacrificed. Everyone was out playing when you were a kid and 19, 20, 30 years old. And you saved, you worked hard. You didn't get married until you were ready. You had everything lined up and you saved. Now, because in San Francisco, and they want to do this everywhere, now, because of bad government policies, it's no longer safe to be outside, and people leave your bakery or your coffee shop or whatever the heck it is, and they say, I don't want to be here. Well, guess what? Everything that you built, all of that tax money that you paid in, now someone like BlackRock or Vanguard can come in and buy that material. But guess what? Who's running BlackRock and Vanguard? People like Larry Fink, who are in the Treasury, who are writing policy and dictating some of this stuff. Yeah. You have the greatest conflict of interest, where you have people who are absolutely coming in. And from a theological perspective, just sitting in the chair of theology here for a moment, you have the people that God entrusted safety, security, and prosperity to, stealing all of the above and harming the innocent.
Here we go. Here's an analogy. We have currently a fox guarding the hen house and expecting all of the hens to be there in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
This is where I go back to people, encouraging people to think back to their great grandmas, their great grandpas. What would they have said about stuff like this? Would they have said that we're being merciful to those who need to use drugs and they want to live on the street? They would have never accepted that. They would have
belt.
Yeah.
But here's the weird thing. Here's the weird thing about postmodernism. They make the case that what Grandma and Grandpa thought not only doesn't matter, it is evil. What Grandma and Grandpa thought was evil. That's the case that they've made, and that's what we've allowed kids in the social Marxist schools.
Yep,
that's what we've allowed them to teach our kids to do.
And this is where you, young people, you need to think this through. This is why I don't believe people that are ill-prepared to think should be going to college. They should not be in a classroom. When we do our Bible studies here, we're not trying to dictate. We want people to think. I've often said, you go ahead and you teach evolution in the school. Have at it, baby. You want to speak a month on teach a month on evolution, you do that. But you make sure you spend a month teaching on creationism.
Creation.
And thank you. Because the one thing is, guys, is that when you put the stuff on the table, anybody who can think through it can come to the right conclusion. Now let me ask you this question. Why do you think that we've got so many coming out of our colleges and universities so screwed up in the head? It's very easy. They are not allowed to think.
Well, one thing that I see is you see kids go in and then you see them come out with blue hair.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Wait a minute.
It's because they're designed by design. Colleges, and again, look, I understand. Just someone's going to say, "Well, did you go to college?" It's like, yeah, actually, I dropped out. Now, I had a reason for it. My family and I lost our home and our business. It took our whole property. I went from making between $30 and $80 an hour doing manufacturing work to zilch overnight. I said, I'm not going to go in for a business administration degree. But I went in for a business administration degree thinking this is a crock. But here's what I'm going to do. I at least want to have the sheet in hand so that when I'm doing business with people, they can see a business degree on my wall. Because it's a minimum show of you have done this much. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. But what I will say is most colleges today are set up to create not thinkers, but obeyers. And it's something that's very pernicious. They want you to be a good little citizen by their model. That's why they don't teach you civics. That's why all these kids come out of college and they think that we're a democracy. We're not a democracy. We're a representative republic. And that is very important. It was partly done so that it would free the slaves. It was partly done so that it would eventually free the slaves. They did that so that they wanted more power over moral issues so that they could free the slaves, because they couldn't quite get it done in the Congress, and the British were at the door. The dragon was at the door. They had to fight, and they had to get everyone in the room ready to fight the dragon. And they said, okay, we will deal with this later, but they put in a lot of protections. They were hoping the 3/5 compromise was either we have a civil war while fighting Britain, or we say, no, you can't vote for these people. We will give you 3/5 of a vote because these people are there, but you cannot have a full vote. We deny you that.
I appreciate you bringing up a really good point, and I want to make sure people understand this. I'm not saying that college and universities is out of the question. There are some that are still left. They're getting fewer and fewer. But what you just said there a moment ago about some colleges and universities are merely interested in making you obeyers, that is spot on truth right there. That is spot on absolute truth right there. And you'll find a number of them in areas of the country that are really struggling. Can you say San Francisco? Can you say Los Angeles? Can you say Oregon? Can you say Washington? We've got a gentleman in one of our Bible studies that moved here from Washington. Why? Because, man, I'll tell you what, it is unbelievably oppressive to just try to live as a Christian.
Yeah,
I get it. I get it. And guys, here's the bottom line. And I want to say this again. You can be as passionate as you want that you believe what you believe is actually truth. And you can silence all those who are saying no and disagreeing with you. My dear friend, your passion in all the world does not necessarily make you right.
Indeed.
And it could prove very costly. And I think we are watching that in our country right now.
And you absolutely see it in academia. And all of this is kind of a decent segue into the next story. If you could pull that up, the Hotez debate between Hotez and Joe Rogan. And this was a debate that never happened. This was a debate that should have happened, but they never quite got together because something interesting that Dr. Hotez said. So just to set this up, before we get there, I've got to set this up. Joe Rogan said, hey, Dr. Hotez, you say that what RFK Jr. is saying about the vaccines being ineffective and even deleterious to some people. We're talking about, and the word vaccine is not even, it's a misnomer. It's not a vaccine. It is an mRNA injection. Whereas vaccines, we know vaccines work. I'm sorry. And I disagree with RFK a little bit that there's no place for vaccines. I will say, I think giving a kid 70 of anything within 6 months is insane. 70 injections with multiple, that's nuts. I don't want anything like that in my kid. You do not have to get my kid vaccinated against hepatitis B, okay? Like when they're 2 weeks old. That is not necessary. No. So he and I could agree on that. But what RFK is saying is there's a lot of evidence that we have some weird coagulation happening. There's a lot of garbage that happens in the bloodstream. And Joe Rogan says, hey, Hotez, you have personally called me out. You've called me this, and that. And Hotez comes back and goes, well, I wasn't really. And Rogan says, no. You retweeted this bleep post from Washington Post or whoever it was. He says, no, you have publicly outed me. And I'm challenging you. I will host a debate between you and RFK Jr. and you. And I will pay you $100,000 to the charity of your choice. But before it was done, Andrew Tate and two other guys said, absolutely. By the time you're done, it had $2 million to any charity that Dr. Hotez would have liked. He could have had $2 million donated to any charity that he liked just for showing up and asking questions on a no time limit. You can talk as long as you want debate. And Hotez said no. Here is why we see in the news. You can pull that up, Mr. Producer.
Now, Hotez again saying he is not afraid of talking about vaccine misinformation. He's afraid of debating what he says is science. He says it is undebatable. So Joe Rogan, as you know, one of the largest podcasts in the country on Spotify so far, millions have tuned in to that episode. We really don't see this debate going anywhere, but we see both sides really hunkering down. Kelly, back.
So he chickened out. And what he said, I think that is the quote of the year. And before I say it again, I'm just going to do Indigo Montoya. Why do you keep using that word? I don't think it means what you think it means. Science is undebatable.
That was staggering to me. That was a very convenient shield to sit behind, because on the surface, looks like there may be validation to that. But here's the thing for everybody to realize, and that's why truth is the most valuable asset that you have. If it is true, you have no reason to hide. You have no reason to bow out. You have no reason to not take him up on that. And I don't know of anybody that wouldn't take $2 million for their favorite charity and sign up in a heartbeat. And if you're in the truth circle, that would have been a slam dunk $200 or $2 million. But it's very clear why he didn't, because he knew that the information would have unbelievably damaged him.
Yeah. But it's obviously a chicken move. And I'm having to self-censor there, is a dummy move, because he knows that he's not going to be able to win the argument. But what he said was so interesting. The science is undebatable. I mean, I am the science. He sounds like Fauci. And it's just the most annoying thing when they say that what I have observed is undebatable. That almost sounds like a religious affirmation, doesn't it? Mm.
Oh my gosh, yes. And see, that's what science should be all about, is especially years back, say like when I was in school, the interesting things about a lot of scientists was the fact that they debated about science, whether things were right or wrong. That's what review papers were written for. Was to debate whether or not the facts were correct or not. And they keep doing review papers on certain things just to make sure things haven't changed.
But here's the problem is that, again, proverbial tinfoil hat on right now, there's an agenda. And whether it's an economic agenda of Pfizer getting hundreds of billions of dollars in income. And by the way, we now know that the virus was released from Wuhan. I think we can say that now on the channel without getting it struck, because it's all over now. Everyone knows that it was released from the Wuhan lab of virology. by the way, the same lab that actually had the vaccine. And it was developed out of there by the same people.
Who it was funded by.
By the way, I was saying this when I was on radio in May. You remember this. I was saying this in radio in May of 2020 in local Houston radio, back when I had a show on the airwaves. It's like, who owns part of the rights to the patent on the vaccine? Who was working in the Wuhan lab of virology? Dr. Fauci. But guess what? You can't question him because he's the science, because they want to create a new world order.
Got to trust the science.
And this is what happens when you are devoid of truth. And again, I'm sorry for the gross analogy earlier, but there will come a point where you feel warm and fuzzy if you deny the biology of hey, look, I have to go to the bathroom. It's the middle of the night. If you deny the reality that you have to go to the bathroom and you just relieve yourself in your bed, you'll feel warm and fuzzy for a while. And then you're going to feel uncomfortable. And then you're going to feel cold. And by the way, if you're in extreme temperatures, as someone who's done, negative whatever camping and done that, if you do that in that scenario, you will literally die. Will literally die. Denying truth. It can feel warm and fuzzy for a moment. Again, sorry for the crude analogy. It's just, it is what it is. It's that stupid. It's on that level. I can't think of a better analogy for denying the truth and the consequences. When you have cut yourself off from reality, people die, you lose prosperity, and you have a situation where they're able to take everything from us. I mean, COVID, think about that. This is the biggest wealth transfer ever to occur on Earth, where you had BlackRock, Vanguard, Amazon, Walmart, all these other companies ballooned 2, 4, 10 times their size pre-pandemic. And who got wiped out?
Small people
like us who have our own business.
And I will, I will tell you that one of the things that I'm looking more and more to do is to support the local businesses. And you should look to do that. I would encourage everybody to do that. I've got my reasons, and I'm not going to get into it here. But I think one of the best things that you can do for the perpetuity of the possibility of a middle class is to support local businesses.
Absolutely.
And one of the interesting things, which I'm sure doesn't surprise a lot of people, restaurants being the number one failing business in America. Of course, during that pandemic phase, they
suffered a lot.
The number one failing business immensely. There were just in the area that we live in, so many restaurants were closing down. It was unreal. So many.
So let's pull this in home, because we're coming up on the 3/4 hour here. Let's start to pull this home from a chair of theology. I think something that people really miss when you look at truth in a post-truth world. Who said he was the way, the truth, and the life? No one comes to the Father but by him. Think about that for a moment. John 14:6. Think about that for just a moment. If Jesus is the way, he is the truth, and he is the life, those things are all synonymous. Satan wants to dissect you, take you off, kind of winnow you off and away from the truth. Because once he's done that, he has control over you. You do not control your life. I am sorry. You control your decisions. You can make judgments, and you have free will. But everything else around you, on the grand scheme of things, God has asked to have a relationship with you. And when God is for you, no one can stand against you. When you have divorced yourself from truth, and again, if you want to be really, really metaphysical about this, the universe, from the Christian worldview, from the fundamentalist Christian worldview, the universe as it is a imprint of God onto a set of time, space, and matter. Because when God spoke, the universe existed. He spoke it into existence. How did he speak it? He sent forth from his proverbial mouth Jesus Christ. Because you look at John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In him all things are made, and outside of him there's nothing made that is made. Jesus, truth, defined reality. Satan wants nothing more than to divorce you from that understanding. That is the power that Satan wishes to take away from you. You can know what manifested, designed, and sculpted reality, including you. You can know him personally. You can have a relationship with him. And whether it is destroying the image of marriage through adultery, homosexuality, bestiality, keep going, just pedophilia, keep going, whatever it is, Satan wants to destroy our understanding of who God is. And you want to, and he wants to take our eyes off. Look, I think Satan does nothing but delights and dances at tragedies like the Ocean Gate sub-Titan failing. But he was championing it the whole way along through diversity, equity, inclusion, through woke ideas. He was pushing that. San Francisco, same thing. Same thing with everyone who had a complication due to the vaccines that did not have to have complications. Okay, I'm not saying that the vaccine is or isn't this or that. I'm saying we know for a fact there are a lot of people who took the vaccine or a booster and suffered. And the fact that they do not want to debate it should make you even more concerned. Mr. Charlie.
All right. I think that I want to tag on to what you said there. The natural next question, if Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, I need to do two things as a person. I need to understand, did he live? Did he do what he said he did? And is he who he said he was? Jesus was resurrected from the dead. I don't know of anybody else that has ever done that. So when you think about that, if he really did resurrect from the dead, now you've got some very serious issues. Because he's conquered death. And if he's conquered death, that means that the things that he has said hold a whole lot of weight. I understand that you don't necessarily want to be accountable to somebody. But he has not given us a life that is oppressive. Evil is in the world. It absolutely is in the world. I get that. But that doesn't mean he doesn't give you the means by which to navigate through it. And in contentment and joy. And I would encourage you out there, if you are really contemplating the issue of Christianity, you're contemplating the issue of following Christ, you need to understand if Jesus is who he said he was. That's truth. I'm not going to tell you which way to believe on that. You have to come to that conclusion. But if I were to sit here and tell you, I would stand confidently that I'm giving you truth. I have nothing to hide behind. You need to seek him out.
Yeah, and in regards to what y'all are saying, and in culture, I believe, I would like to think, and I believe personally, that people like to know the truth. When you ask somebody a question, you want to hear the truth. You don't want to constantly be lied to, which is what Satan's number one operandus is to tell the lie. That's what he knows. That's his big thing. That's what his heel he stands on. And Christ is all about truth. And here's an interesting one for you here. If you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Amazing. absolutely amazing words said by Jesus Christ.
Amen. You know,
the truth will make you free.
Mr. Producer and I were having a conversation with a few people a couple of nights ago, and we were talking. You know, I don't think I'm alone. I think we all kind of have a question mark of, do we spend too much time thinking about lies and death and about darkness? You said something that really sparked this in me, Mr. Steve. Because God didn't create lies. God did not create darkness. God did not create death. God only created truth. He created righteousness. And he created us life. So all Satan has, when you said Satan's modus operandi is lies, all he has is lies. Because everything else, that which is true, what is reality, is the domain of God.
I like that.
And what Satan has left is anything but what is true. That's why you should cling. That's why you should cling to what is true. Cling to what is true this week. If you liked this episode, go ahead, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Sharing is the new caring. YouTube loves it when you share. They also hate it, and they are actively suppressing the channel. We watch them delete views by the hundreds, even thousands in some cases. So go ahead and share this podcast for those of you listening on audio. Guys, this is a monumentous episode. Right now, as of filming this, and certainly after, we have surpassed 200,000 downloads.
All right.
In 104
Praise the Lord,
episodes.
Jesus.
Praise God indeed. That means that we've done two years worth of episodes every week. And we've been blessed by your listenership.
Thank you, guys.
200,000 listens.
And you know what? Let me just add one more thing onto that. One of the things, we're not looking for accolades. We're not looking for people to clap for us, blah, blah, blah. That's not the reason we do this. We do this to help people navigate, to think, to find their answers. And it would be encouraging to us to let us know, hey, this impacted me this way or that way. You know what? If you've got negative comments, send them.
Yeah.
We're not afraid of those. And we'll be glad to send responses to those. Now, if you're looking just to troll and heckle,
please do.
Save it.
Please do. We love it.
Okay.
We read them. We laugh. We have a really good time. Mr. Producer's laughing right there. He thinks, he likes Elijah the lesbian. Just keep coming. It's so much material. We love reading your stuff. It's a lot of fun. So please,
we get a good laugh.
Elijah the lesbian, I'm calling you out. Go ahead and hit something in the comment section down below, but avoid those nasty words, because sometimes I'm pretty sure YouTube comes by and deletes them because I don't see them even in the chat, because YouTube auto curates a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I'll see that there's 9 comments and only 3 of them show because someone used the F word, right? So by the way, just as a tip, if you want to send us hate mail, don't call us bigots and don't use the F word and say that you're going to harm our mothers, because it doesn't get through. You'll have to do that euphemistically. Okay, you'll have to do that euphemistically if you wish to do that. I want to read all of your comments. We do this not because it's a benefit. This show right now up to this date has been an outlay and an expense and an effort. Yes. We hope instead that it is a blessing, that it is something that is transformative, or that it is simply a comfort to you. Maybe it's something that you listen to and you say, I'm not crazy. There are people who are righteous and who are trying to be righteous in this world. Hopefully you find that solace. With that said, you can find us on Twitter as well, @FurtherEveryday. We are trying the TikTok. It makes me sick, so we have done too much, but we are trying to do the TikTok. If I can find one of our Gen Zers to help me out with that, we will. But with that said, we love you so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, if you're still there, we did put you to sleep, or you are our super listener. Mr. Charlie did not forget that we do this, so I'm going to go around today, and again, because it's been a weird month. Pride Month's been weird, and I really don't feel like commenting on a comedy-wise on any of that stuff or on the sub. What is your favorite Italian food? What is your favorite Italian food? And Mr. Producer, I want to hear yours too.
Probably goes, boy, that's a tough one.
Steve.
It's a tough one. I can go spaghetti, I can go shrimp scampi, and I can go pizza.
Okay.
Man, I'll tell you what. Ooh, let's see here. I like spaghetti or lasagna made with deer meat.
Oh.
I'll tell you, when it is made with deer meat, it is mwah.
I bet
a little chicken parmesan isn't bad either.
Fantastic.
Ooh. I bet it is. Goodness. I love a good pesto, a good green or red pesto, and I like it in a pasta, what have you. And Mr. Producer, Rai, the producer guy, likes pizza and spaghetti.
Okay.
So, kind of universal. Pizza and spaghetti are loved. If you have a good pesto pasta, it's green. You just got to get over the fact that it's basil.
My stepmom used to make pesto, and man, she's actually from Sicily, and her family is, and man, she made some. Oh man, it was good.
But I'll tell you, the thing is, and this is true of any authentic type of food, you want a true Italian cooking that food for you if you want to get to the very core of the taste of it.
You need mama's love.
Amen.
Yep.
So tell us down in the comment section down below what your favorite Italian food is.
That would be interesting.
I want to see it in the results. With that said, we love you. For real now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.